Welcome into another edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sideline.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society.
No fucking play is that a gimme, right?
We're in for another edition of Gas, the Gresh Anik Show. Gas Morning Drive. We are here to get you going. Jason Anik is a world traveler from Vegas to Chicago and then hanging out with a world championship coach. Jay, how was UFC 319 in Chicago? Your photo history says you were hanging with some pretty important people.
No question. I mean, one of the most special days of my life, I think, was Saturday, UFC 19,
Wow.
UFC 319. And we will get to the fights, right? But Daniel Cormier said after the event at the Sphere, it was the best night of his life. And we were sort of laughing about it. I was like, me too. It was that special watching UFC fights at the Sphere. And we joked, like, with respect to our wives, like, best night of our lives. But so Joe Mazzulla, Boston Celtics head coach, is a diehard MMA fan. He is a jiu-jitsu blue belt. He's all about sort of this MMA game. And so he texted my brother John. He's got to know my brother John a little bit. Let John know he was coming to Chicago. He's very good friends with Eric Nixick, who's a well-known coach, Extreme Couture out in Vegas. So Mazzulla reached out to Eric Nixick to try to get in touch with someone that could sort of train with him in Chicago while he was there for the event. Nixick wasn't there for the event. And if you recall, Eric Nixick went to a game with a Clippers game where the Celtics were playing the Clippers. And after the game, Joe Mazzulla like had him on the ground rolling, post game. Nixick's like, all right, let's go. So anyway, that tells you how much Mazzulla is sort of married to this jiu-jitsu game, second to basketball. So he connects him with former welterweight champion Bilal Muhammad, who's from Chicago, who's like my boy. So the synergy starts to happen, right? So Bilal texts me, I'm sitting with John. I'm like, you want to go train with Mazzulla on Saturday? So of course the answer is yes. So John and I have never trained before, never been on a mat, trained jiu-jitsu. John did a little bit, but we're not mixed martial artists, right? So I say to John, why don't we run over there so we're dripping sweat when we get there? No one's going to expect us to get down on a mat. But anyway, so we schedule a day. So Bilal rents out a gym that's sort of downtown close to where Mazzulla is. And so he brings Mike Valley, his head coach, one of his training partners, Max Perez. And Mazzulla's there with DJ McKay, who's his top assistant or one of his top assistants. So John and I run over there. We see Coach Mazzulla. And it's just unbelievable. This guy's a jiu-jitsu junkie. Bilal's like, what do you want to do? He's like, I want you to fucking kill me. That's what he said. I want you to fucking kill me, right?
And here's the thing with Joe Mazzulla. If you've ever met him, folks, there isn't a lot of facial change with him. And the way he speaks, this isn't a criticism, he speaks really monotone and it's in kind of the same. So sometimes you might not, if you weren't familiar with Joe Mazzulla, you might think, oh my God, this guy is a lunatic. But in reality, it's just he's even keel. His face doesn't change very much. He can be misunderstood, I guess, Jay, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, and what I'll say, right, when I do podcasts or commentating or anything like that, oftentimes I'm trying to prepare as much for the person or persons I'm going to be talking to. Mm-hmm. So what's interesting is you and I have heard Joe Mazzulla in interviews so much, right, that I am so comfortable with his cadence, the way he speaks. And obviously there's a level of comfort with Bilal and my brother there. But so when I met him, I said, dude, fucking legend, shake his hand. He's like, and totally deadpan. He's like, no, I'm not. Hopefully someday.
You know what? And he said that in press conferences before, that same way that you delivered it.
Yep. The conversation go on. A lot of it is private, but I said to him, I bet you don't want me to congratulate you on your new extension, right? He's like, nope. I was like, I bet you don't like the Bill Belichick comparisons, right? He's like, oh, I'm okay with those. But it was just unbelievable, right? And so DJ McClay, who's one one of his assistants, was there. So they train a lot. There he is on the left of your screen. But Mazzulla was all about the jiu-jitsu, right? So Bilal's putting in work. Mazzulla's hitting pads. Every time Mazzulla's gassed, Bilal's like, get back out there, So Bilal's putting him through it. But it was just an incredible day. There was so much conversation with Joe, and you can be sure he was in the building for the first prelim. But he was very revealing, certain things that I wouldn't reveal. But, my mom was born in Boston in 1952. She watches all 82 regular season games. My younger brother watches all 82 regular season games, no matter where he is. That meant so much to Joe Mazzulla. Mazzulla said things to me like, I'm glad we didn't win a second back-to-back title. He's like, because I don't think I'd be the person I am today. Talked about Jason Tatum being glad he suffered the Achilles injuries because he will be able to touch into a dark place he's not sure he would have been able to touch into had that not happened. He assured me they're going to get another one within the next 5 years. I believe him. It goes on and on, but he wanted to make it clear to my mom and my brother and any Celtics fan I talked to. Hyperbole. It was just, I'm blown away, Gresh. I could go on and on. Some of this will be for in private, but just blown away with the transparency and just getting to know the man. I had a smile on my face all day.
Here's what I really appreciate about Joe Mazzulla. Even though he is someone who is to be respected in part for his success and his job, he is almost overly respectful to those that he has respect for. Does that make sense? Like Absolutely. With Bilal, you know what I mean? Like I'm the fact that guy coaches NBA players and he humbles himself to be driven by a UFC champion because of the respect there, and the guy pushes himself. It lets us know that this guy he's a different thinker. And I think that's why he really connects with some of these players in the NBA, is because he can get them to think a little differently, and therefore the respect from the player grows. It's like all these guys who talk about Bill Belichick. They talk about how tough he is, but to a man, have you ever heard one of them, other than maybe Asante Samuel, say, oh, he's overrated as a football coach? You never hear that. There's always that level of respect there. And I know that when Mazzulla would come down to like Patriots camp, you could just see that guy is the living motto in situations like that of you have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. He's not talking. Absolutely. He's watching and he's listening. And that's what makes that guy different to connect with the modern NBA player.
100%. He's talking to Bilal's head coach, Mike Valley, about, in between rounds, corner work. We're talking a lot about halftime. He and John are talking a lot about preparation and just being a professional and what goes into it, right? And certainly there's some mixed martial arts talk. But what I'll say to you is the takeaway for me was sort of how intimate it was and how very quickly I wasn't sitting across from the Celtics coach, right? I said to him at one point, I was like, as a fan, just looking from afar, my guess would be that Joe Mazzulla, I know, cannot wait to have this sort of restructured roster and just see what you can do with this. Mm-hmm. And he gets this huge smile on his face, looks over at his assistant. He's like, DJ, you hear that? And it's true. He loves the challenge, and it's just so refreshing. The energy coming out of him. And you can be sure there was one guy in the 30 minutes that didn't stop on the mat when everybody else did, and that was Joe Mazzulla, right? He's running sprints back and forth while we're, in between, he's got a timer going off. All right, now I got to get up. He's got a heart rate monitor. Dude, just totally locked in. I'm still buzzing.
It's, yeah, you should be. For anybody who knew his Joe Mazzulla's dad, Dan Mazzulla, from up in Johnston, Rhode Island, there were legendary stories about that guy, but he was an intense dude. Sometimes a little difficult to deal with. I don't think Joe is difficult to deal with, but the intensity definitely got handed down to the coach of the future world champion Boston Celtics, now Bill Chisholm's Boston Celtics. Hey, what would it be like to wake up and look in an account and see $6 billion? That's what Wyc Grousbeck got for the Celtics, just, off of the whole Mazzulla thing. Could you imagine checking in the morning and then just casually over coffee being like, yeah, the $6 billion was in there?
Well, it's unbelievable. But if you want to know the truth, like when I hear about something like that, all I think about is what I could do and what the type of people I could help, right? In this crazy world, you know what I mean? This just messed up world with all these people printing money, yet all these problems. Sorry, I know we're not trying to go down that road, but no, it's unbelievable. It's insane. And we could talk about the San Antonio Spurs from 2014, the whole roster made 63 million total. SGA's making 63 million next year. It's unbelievable, right? The Fertitta sold the UFC for what, $4 billion, right? Now we're looking at a 1.1 billion per year to be on television.
That's crazy.
I mean, the exponential growth of dollars in sports and television is just insane.
Yeah, and all of the the ESPN moves, the UFC moves, ESPN, I guess, is gonna they're moving away from baseball, but they might buy MLB TV, which I think would backdoor give them digital rights. So anyway, let's get into UFC 319, bro, because you were there. I was absolutely shocked at how awful DDP was against Chimaev. There's domination, and then there is the guy had no chance, and he had no answer, and it was beyond disappointing. Because while the fight was exciting because it was a title fight, it really turned into a one-sided domination. And boy, I feel like an asshole for being so in on DDP when he couldn't even properly stick his thumb in Chimaev's ass whenever he crucifixed him for the 8th time.
I love that I don't bet MMA, because all these people that bet MMA or predict MMA, it's the green goggles, right? With respect, you were forced to root for DDP and root for your action, right? Dean Thomas comes up to me after the fight. DDP let me down. Like, I love Dean Thomas more than almost everyone on this planet, but what are you talking about? Like, bro, I just want to tell you, right? That fight, I mean, I'm with my brother, John. I was completely riveted for 25 minutes. The dominance of Khamzat Chimaev, that's not about DDP. That's about Khamzat Chimaev, right? Bunch of 10-8s on my scorecard, you can be sure, right? And maybe I'm the wrong guy to talk to, because I've watched 120 jiu-jitsu matches over the last 4 weeks, and I'll watch another 30 tonight, right? But it's not just the 25 minutes. It's 32 minutes. It's the walk. It's the aura. It's the eyebrow lift to the camera. I mean, John, my brother said, Khamzat competing regularly is the most exciting shit out there. And it is, in October when he messed up Robert Whittaker's jaw, right? Now, Joe Rogan said to me, Whittaker's jaw was far messed up before that. But either way, like what Khamzat did, I'm just blown away. And the crucifix position to me. Do you recall when Aaron Blanchfield put Molly McCann in the crucifix? I think it was 2022. It was so uncomfortable to watch. Molly McCann could do nothing. It is such a dominant position. And for a guy like DDP, who is strong and who didn't give up and continued to work, to not be able to move in that position, I was just blown away. I could have watched 50 minutes of it. The fact, to me, the idea of DDP sort of constantly trying to get up and not able to do so was just so impressive to me. And I believe that crucifix position was obtained in 3 out of the 5 rounds. I just was blown away. And Khamzat Chimaev as a champion, I know I've said for a long time, nothing better for my brother than seeing a new champion in the UFC, but this guy deserves to be a champion. And I was blown away. I enjoyed every second of it.
Yeah, I was blown away at just how inept Duplessis was. And look, Chimaev, we know that he had here's the thing, Jay, and the reason that I led with Duplessis, we all knew there was the chance that Chimaev was going to do that to DDP in some way. What I think we underestimated, and why I come away with such an awful taste in my mouth, is because he wasn't just dominated, like you said. There were a couple of 10-8s in there in terms of being dominated, and that doesn't feel like that. That's why I understand what Dean Thomas is saying, because Duplessis looked like a guy, quite honestly, who should not have been in there. It was like a mauling. And we knew Chimaev was capable, but to the level that it went to, I think is why people are reacting the way they are, and why I definitely feel the way they are. And look, Chimaev pretty much against anybody right now, You're selling me. I mean, I'm already sold. The guy is unbelievable. I don't know who in the world stops him. Then again, maybe it was just the right opponent for Chimaev to absolutely dominate, and others might create other problems for him. But goddamn, that was the most dominant performance I think I've ever seen in the UFC.
Well, Gilbert Burns, who's a great grappler, who offers some great anti-grappling, maybe performed best against Khamzat Chimaev in Jacksonville. A lot of people think if that had been a 5-round fight, maybe Gilbert finds a way, and Gilbert's undersized. But what I will say about DDP, Bilal Muhammad has talked a lot of smack about DDP, even talking about going up a weight class and being able to do some things there. So I'm sure Bilal Muhammad thinks that potentially he could have success against DDP on the ground. But a lot of it is about game plan, and what Khamzat Chimaev did in sticking to this game plan, right? Bilal Muhammad, I'm sure, has had some thoughts about his game plan against Jack Della Maddalena when he watches Khamzat Chimaev get the belt around his waist and not put himself in any dangerous positions. It'd be interesting to talk to Dricus du Plessis to see where he may go differently, to see if he would just go wild to avoid being grabbed on any account, spinning attacks like crazy, kicks, flailing, just go absolutely nuts. Would that potentially be a different game plan? But my brother asked me in the hotel room after the fight, you just pick one middleweight to send back in there to beat Khamzat. And he didn't like my answer. But my answer was DDP. And the reason my answer was DDP, I understand it wasn't a good matchup and there's not going to be an immediate rematch, but whether it's Fluffy Hernandez, Reiner de Ritter, those are the two guys who I think may have, and Reiner de Ritter I met this weekend, maybe he has a great shot. But I love Chimaev against those guys. So to me, it's like DDP having been in there 25 minutes. I don't like anybody at middleweight against this guy Chimaev.
Hey, let me, I know you're close with Bilal, but I've only, seen him on TV. I hear what they say for height and weight and stuff like that. Him carrying 185, is that possible for Bilal, or is 170 where it's kind of at for him?
A lot right now he's chasing the 170 belt right now, but he's a guy that is in tremendous shape out of camp. So it's not as if he's crossing over 190 out of camp. So ultimately, I've always felt as though he would be undersized at middleweight. He probably wouldn't like hearing that. When he used to call out DDP, what I thought about is DDP is massive compared to Bilal Muhammad, in my opinion.
Well, and see, that's what I wonder, because there's putting on 15 pounds and then there's putting on 15 pounds that would allow you to be a functionally stronger fighter. And so I asked that more inquisitively would it be like a year-long process for him to put it on the right way to be able to carry that much weight? How the Lerone Murphy fight was everybody in my, now how about this? So this is what it was like in my house on the UFC pay-per-view night. My oldest and 4 of his friends are watching in the garage. So they can all hang in there, and there's a PlayStation, all that stuff. Me, my wife, my son, and his 2 friends are in the living room. Now, the space is not that far apart, and there are doors that are closed, but still, when Murphy hits the shot, you hear both rooms erupt at the same time because it was so sudden and so awesome. That was a great end. God dang. What was it like in the building?
I don't even know what to say. John said one of the greatest knockouts of all time, given sort of, Corey Sandhagen did a breakdown and talked about the step in that Pico took and and the lack of defensive positioning for Pico in that spot. Pico was a minus 170 favorite. We talked about that on Mad Dog Sports Radio this weekend.
Yeah, we did.
And I think a lot of people felt as though what would cause him to be in a spot like this was the over-aggression. It certainly played itself out. He did a lot of things against Lerone Murphy. You could argue he might have even won the round, especially early on. But it's just unbelievable. Now Lerone Murphy, punched his ticket to a title shot against Volk?
Probably so. I mean, it really is amazing how one shot can change your life, good or bad. And that was one of them. And then Prada's got the spinning back elbow as well. Maybe not as exciting. Weird to see it twice on the same card, but I thought UFC 319, it was, I think from a name recognition standpoint, some people might have been like, is this the best card? I thought top to bottom, it was really awesome and really entertaining.
I agree. And what I'll say, right, is you get those two spinning back fists before, or elbows, before you get that 25-minute dominant fight, right? So I got those sort of finish fixes before that happened. But what I will say, right, I met DDP backstage at the ceremonial weigh-ins, right? And these guys are all in mode. And John has told me DDP is one of the greatest guys. Well, you know, a lot of these guys are great guys. He puts DDP on a pedestal. So DDP's in mode, and he sort of walks toward me, thinks I'm John. I reach out my hand and introduce myself to DDP. And immediately that'll throw you off your fight mode when all of a sudden I'm not sure he knew. I think he knew I existed, but and he literally just sort of stopped in his tracks and asked me my name. Big hug. Could not have been nicer. And then you go out there and you watch him compete and you're 5 feet away. It's just, I am so grateful. It's just an incredible week. Got to spend a lot of time with Joe. This time, Joe Rogan, got to talk about the Professional Grappling Federation, which is very exciting for me. So it's really cool. It's a really intimate sort of scene, this UFC promotion in a lot of ways. And I'm just fortunate to be on John's heel.
It's interesting. So Rogan was picking your brain on PGF, huh?
Yeah, well, most of the time I'm with Joe, I'm with him and John, and they're talking, and I'm just sort of around, so I'm doing more listening than talking. But Eddie Bravo, who is close with Joe, actually mentioned the PGF to Joe on his podcast at one point. And, I just, had an opportunity, and, Joe was all ears. I'm real close with one of Joe's heads of security, so I end up sort of magnetizing. I'm sort of always around him because we end up watching the fights together. It's like you get close to people you work with, right? And so Joe's head of security, I sit with him for hours on these fight nights. So we've gotten pretty close. It's pretty cool, but just a crazy scene across the board. I got people thinking I'm John all the time. I was wearing a hat, and when I wear a hat, people really don't think I'm who I say I am.
You can definitely fool them. So you've got 20 fights tonight, or 20 grappling matches tonight?
Yes, so this is the regular season finale tonight of the PGF. It is week 5. So the team champion will be determined tonight. So you have two teams, Team Dolomer and the Alabama Twisters. 3 points separate these two teams. So very likely one of these two teams is going to be crowned champion tonight. After tonight, these 20 athletes will be pared down to an 8-man bracket for the playoff, which will be September 10th. Back out here in Vegas. So I'm all fired up. And then tomorrow, Gresh, Radio Row at Circa Sport for the Survivor contest. I'm doing a podcast called Last Men Standing with my guy, Tony Farmer. So we will be fully embedded into the National Football League. We'll definitely have you on that show. But yeah, I got a lot of entries in the Survivor contest. So I'm trying to make my money that way because gas ain't paying me enough, Gresh.
Well, that is true. And how many entries? I'm just curious.
Yeah, you're allowed
to. You can give me several if it's too many.
No, well, so John and I have always done the million contest where we pick 5 games against the spread.
The super contest, right?
Exactly, the super contest. We've always done that because we just love that as gambling junkies, but we really believe the better chance to cash is in Survivor. So we did 4 Survivor entries between me and John, and 1 entry in the million contest where you pick 5 against the spread. And what I will say, if you think that $5,000 was dispersed evenly, if you think John and I each put in $2,500, you are sorely mistaken.
Yeah. That's like the Christmas ticket that you got.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
That's where it came from.
Yeah. We cashed out on the Indiana Pacers 42-1 to win the Eastern Conference. I was supposed to give John a chunk of that money. I don't think I did, but he's okay.
Yeah. He didn't miss it. He's at that level. So let's get to the Red Sox. They add Nathaniel Lowe, somebody who got DFA'd from the Nationals. Marcelo Mayer is going under the knife. His season is done. Sox are 3-4 in their last 7. They lost a crusher last night, and this week it's a 4-game series with the Yankees.
So it's worse than you said. They've lost 7 of their last 10, 3 in a row. Now looking up at the Yankees, 2 losses behind the Yankees. I love doing our weekly show because, gosh, it's a different feeling. And when I looked at the rundown Cody sent last night, I knew that the result of the Red Sox game would impact even how I feel today. And that really is the case, right? So The wild card's still absolutely in play. The two teams behind the Red Sox right now, Royals at 65 and 61, Guardians at 64 and 61, Red Sox a few games up at 68 and 59 there, right? But so I think they still have a great chance to sneak in the playoffs. But I hate to say it, Gresh, I feel like this team has maybe already peaked, or peaked too early. I think a lot will depend on where they are if they sneak in as a wild card. Dare I say, let's say the month of September is just okay. If the last half of the month is really good, I think they have a chance to make some noise. I really believe that the chemistry and the juice and the clubhouse is what's going to define this team. Interestingly enough, they put themselves in this playoff picture where, Cody, you can maybe pull up the odds of them making the postseason are very good, but I don't believe in them to a great extent today because they're just not playing good baseball right now. I do love how Nathaniel Lowe, though, has his Fenway moment last night with the 2-run bomb to tie it up bottom 9. That had to be fun to be in the building, but they're just not emerging victorious enough. But I will say I'm in Vegas right now, and I love betting on teams that have, like the Red Sox, that have lost 3 in a row. I don't know what the pitching matchup is tonight, but I like them tonight. Are they playing tonight?
The 10-game win streak is what has really put this team over the top. They're 68 and 59, so they're 9 games over. So if you're just 500
off today, by the way,
yeah, if you're just 500 around a 10-game win streak, there you go. There's how the Red Sox maybe make it in. I don't know if the Royals and the Guardians are necessarily poised to sort of surge and grab this final wild card spot, but it's not going to be easy because they just can't win consistently on the road. They're 7 games under 500 on the road. And Jay, for me, something that I think history has shown in big league baseball, it's the be 500 or just over 500 as a road team and then smash people at home. That's sort of the, hey, if you're a really good team, you're at least going to be 500 on the road, if not maybe a game over, and then you kill people at home. That's the ballpark factor for the Red Sox. And yet, all these other teams are kind of flirting around 500 on the road, and the Red Sox are 7 games under. So it's almost like they're leaning too much on Fenway Park at sometimes. But look, it's really the starting pitching that has got to get cleaned up and carry them. Everybody is dealing with bullpen issues right now. Doing the work that I'm doing on Mad Dog Radio, I work with producers who love the Mets, right? And after the trade deadline, it was, we got the best bullpen in baseball. Now that, they've seen it for like 15 days, it'd be like, man, these guys really blow. And I think everybody is fighting something in big league baseball. It is the end of August. So let's see the Red Sox get to September. If they can get there in that third wild card spot, it's all familiar teams. So I think you kind of feel pretty good the rest of the way. Just be in that spot at the end of August. Don't completely shit yourself. But again, my motto for this year, we're riding the roller coaster of the Red Sox all year long.
And to your Mets producers, is 1986 the last time they've won a world championship?
Correct.
See, and I'm not saying that to be a dick, but what I'll say is that 2018 is not that long ago. So being a Red Sox fan, I'm telling you, and the manager, unless I'm mistaken, is the same guy that's running it today. So there's a privilege to being a Boston sports fan in a lot of ways, right? I got a couple of championships fresh in my mind. And so I do believe getting in the dance with these bullpen issues, all these different things, there's a guy leading it that's really capable. So for the Mets, 1986, I wish you all the best in the world getting into the Final Four of Major League Baseball's postseason this year. And if you get there, let me know when you hoist it, just like the Yankees. Because if the Red Sox get in this tournament, Alex Cora will make them a contender in it. I really believe it. You don't.
I'm not ready to go there just yet. I think there's a big X factor here down the stretch, and his name is Aaron Judge. The Yankees have been playing without him for a while. No team in baseball relied more on one player through the first half of the season than the Yankees did with Aaron Judge. That's the thing that scares me about the Yanks, is that if that guy can just find a way to be 80% of himself, he's going to end up being a big factor down the stretch and then maybe in the playoffs. And that's where, you start to think about getting into seeding and things like that. How does that all work out with the wild card and the, this disjointed postseason? I'm still like processing as a fan. I still think it's the old days. But regardless, if the Red Sox are there at the end of August, you got to feel pretty good about them. The Tigers have not been very good since we've come back from the All-Star break. There's really no one hot in the American League. So that I can understand. And Jay, you're more emotional about the Red Sox than I am. But I can at least understand it because there is no dominant team in the American League.
Well, and I'm probably more emotional about everything than you, Gresh. But for me, it's like my fandom as a baseball fan, right? I'm not Jared Carrabis. I don't watch all 9 innings. So for me, as I sit here on August 20th, to your point, they're absolutely in it. Cody, what's the odd to reach the postseason for the Red Sox? Forgive me. I'm looking at my guy, Gresh. It looks like you got Hasbulla on your lap, by the way. That would be funny. The picture of you and Hasbulla on your lap.
I would love it. I think John told me there's only 2 people he's left his seat to go get a picture with, and one of them is Hazzy.
Yeah. So there you go, right? So if you said to me at the beginning of the season, on August 20th, the Red Sox are going to be minus 225 to make the playoffs, right? That's really all I need. I believe it was 2021 where the Red Sox eliminated the Yankees from the postseason. That was fun, right? So who knows what the future may be, but I do think that if they get up against the Yankees or whatever and can find a way to win that series, that's almost like winning a title.
Well, it would be, at least if you're just going to go one round, then yes. Beating them would make it fun. Like beating Toronto or someone like that, it just doesn't have the same juice as knocking out the Yanks. And it allows you to like sleep better at night because I don't think this is a World Series team, but you know, let's see how many other guys they can pick up that just get released by other teams to come in and help them night after night. And we'll see where it kind of goes from there. We got quarterback decisions that have been made in the NFL. Jay's got old. Wow, that is.
You like that, don't you?
Well, hold on. I'm going to tell you why. But you have to. Okay. I'm going to try to find and send you a picture later that you could probably find it online. It's Zolak walking out of the old tunnel at the old Foxborough Stadium. And behind him is the son of the former longtime play-by-play voice, big voice, right? Who is walking behind him down the ramp wearing that pullover, acid wash jeans, and spot builts. You remember those old spot built turf shoes? So he was hanging on to them from like the 1989 season. And I'm going to try to send you that picture later. That's why it popped me, because I think that guy now works like at the Hall of Fame or something like that, you know, walking around with the gear from 1989.
I love it. You're never going to know where I bought this. You're going to die, right? So when Bilal Muhammad fought Leon Edwards and won the belt in Manchester, England, I bought this at a thrift store in Manchester, England a couple years ago. Is that not insane?
And it was a steal. It had to have been.
Oh, yeah.
You pay in pounds?
I did. We did pay in pounds. Don't know how many. Yeah. Hey, but dude, we're like 2 weeks out from the
toast. Beans on toast.
Oh, dude.
No, dude. That's not. Oh, goddamn. Now I wish I'd thought ahead. That was, you know where that was from? Because Zoe and I have talked about this. That was the night they beat San Francisco. And I think Ted Sarandis said something bad about him on the radio or whatever. And when he won that game, there's a very famous quote of Zoe telling people to shove it up. Certain people can like shove it up their ass. I think is what he said. That. And I think that was to Ted for saying something about they have no chance of beating the 49ers with Zoe. And then they go, I think it was 24-21. They pull the upset. Big night for Zip, my man. And I'm gonna find that other photo because that pullover is mad funny. Well, the Patriots do not have a quarterback decision to make. They know it is Drake May, but the Colts have gone with Daniel Jones as QB1 over Anthony Richardson.
Yep.
This was not Sophie's choice necessarily. This was you're picking between two backup but you're picking which backup quarterback you want to start.
Well, so my brother John and I have always been much higher on Daniel Jones than the masses. And what I will say, pay $14 million a year, right? This guy's getting paid more than Aaron Rodgers. I believe they had really made a decision about Daniel Jones being their starter the moment they signed him to this contract. I really believe that that's been their intention all along. There are a lot of people around the NFL that believe that Anthony Richardson just is not a franchise quarterback, and that ship has already sailed. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people inside the Colts organization feel the same way. Cody put up in the chat, top story on ESPN. His agent, Richardson's agent, doesn't know what his future is. I saw that as well today. But I do believe if I'm a player on the Colts, I like that this is decided now. And if there's going to be any chance, the Colts are not looked at as a contender, really. But if there's going to be any chance of them being a contender, I think starting the year like this really does make the most sense. Richardson not only is a liability on the field, but he can't even stay on the field. So to me, it's Daniel Jones all day. And I like the fact that he was in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell. Get a little bit of that brain rubbing off on you. I like Daniel Jones. Early in his career when he used to scramble, he used to always fall down all the time, right? But he's a very unique player. And I believe if he can evolve and improve, he very much could be a starter in this league. I really believe that.
Yeah, I think the reason he's the starter is because Jim Irsay passed away and his daughters have now taken over the franchise. So I think Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen both heard Carly Irsay Gordon at the press conference say, well, I don't know what my father thought, but the results have not been good enough. So I think they're starting the more experienced quarterback because the heat is turned up on both Chris Ballard, the GM, and Shane Steichen, the head coach. With new ownership comes new eyes. And I read up on these girls. So it's the three Irsay daughters that are taking over. One is basically like kind of the steward of the franchise, like in the Jim Irsay role within the league. The other one is marketing and finance. And then there's one of the daughters who wears a headset every game and listens to the coaches and has talked about how, hey, sometimes, I can hear when a wide receiver misses something versus it being a bad play call, or when the quarterback makes a bad read, she's like kind of the one who sort of sits in on the football part of it. So all of the girls have different functions in the organization, and it kind of seems like with different eyes, maybe you want to go get they want to get their person to sort of go run it. And I made the joke on Mad Dog Radio yesterday. Imagine if they wanted an interview with Bill Belichick and all three Irsay women sit down with a 74-year-old man to talk about his 25-year-old girlfriend.
It's hilarious. I knew that's where you're going.
But Bill going into Indy, that's one of those operations where maybe they would allow something like that. But anyway, as an aside, Browns went with Joe Flacco. They had nobody else. Kenny Pickett is hurt. They're not starting the rookies. This, to me, was fait accompli. People, got short-term boners over Shedeur Sanders, but, they don't have to go to the hospital. That those ragers have subsided.
So, I really miss the 80s and 90s, and I wanted to talk about this, and it had nothing to do with my jacket, but it's like all these different free agent rumors that are out there, right? And all these different things going around, like Micah Parsons, for example, right? It's like, is he going to sign Sunday morning, week 1, like Dak did last year, right? It's like you got Terry McLaurin. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say this year it'd be Thursday night because the Cowboys play the Eagles in the opener. So that would be very Jerry-like of getting the deal done with Micah that morning and stealing the championship celebration of the Eagles.
It's like James Cook with Buffalo, it's like it seemed like there was ongoing conversations and they worked that out. But it's like a guy like Trey Hendrickson, feels like he's going to stay. You know what I mean? It seems like they've have some agreement on sort of the number of years. I think the guaranteed money is what's the holdup there.
Yeah.
But I feel like he's going to stay. But it's like all these guys, right? It's like in the 80s and 90s, He's like Terry McLaurin. He signed a contract, right? I understand he's the 20th highest paid receiver, so they want to rip that up. But I just miss a less complicated time because I understand it from the player's side and the organizations as well, right?
Well, I think people forget, Jay, and this adds some clarity to your free agent thought. Remember when the Cowboys won 2 with Jimmy Johnson, then they had the divorce, and then Switzer came in? Jimmy Johnson's championships were in a no free agent era. That when you think about it, right? So you could, like, people would say, how come the Redskins were good intermittently in the 80s? Because if you look at what they drafted, hell, they drafted a Hall of Fame offensive line that was there for a decade almost, for God's sakes. So you're, up and down based on some other players that you hit or miss on, but you used to be able to, the old 49ers of Bill Walsh, they hoarded assets like crazy. Hell, they had Montana and, Young for such a long period of time. Right. So to your point, I kind of get you where it's almost like, okay, your draft class really mattered. And also the CBA has complicated this with these guys with their hold-ins. Like Micah Parsons should have said, I want to be traded, and then stayed away and dealt with, the money end of it for the fines later, but really stomp your feet. And here's another thing too. This one just irks me because I am glad you brought this up. So Micah Parsons, he comes into a league where there's a negotiated CBA that basically tells him what his 5-year contract is going to be. But you still negotiate that with an agent, right? And then Jerry Jones, in a scummy way, tries to circumvent the agent and put it on the player. I mean, tell me you have no faith in your ability to negotiate. And you know what's going to happen? Because Jerry dragged his feet. And then so what happened was Jerry dragged his feet on getting Parsons done, and all the other contracts came in. So Jerry then, to try to get some leverage back, was like, well, I talked to Micah, and he told me he'd play for shit. And because Jerry lost his leverage because he screwed it up. So he's trying to circumvent the agent. And you know what's going to happen in the end? He's going to be the richest. He's going to be the highest paid defensive player in football, and they'll get it done to steal thunder away from the Eagles. And it could have got done a year ago, but Jerry is just an idiot and an egomaniac. Great businessman, awful in the business of football.
When you hear Elliott Wolf get asked the question, would you be willing to part with a first or second round pick if something opened up in free agency or a player became available, and he says yes? So when we look at this through a Patriots lens, right?
Yeah.
I wish the McClaurin stuff had happened earlier. You know what I mean? Like several months back, because I think that would have been a tremendous fit. But I just don't feel like that makes sense at this time, given sort of the way the roster is constructed at that position. But it's like a guy like Micah Parsons, right? Like to be like the face of the Patriots, right? I would absolutely. I mean, I understand they just signed Milton Williams, but they still are the team with the most wiggle room in terms of the salary cap, if I'm not mistaken. And a guy like, no.
Well, they do this year, but do you know they're over the cap for next year? So I think they want to try to roll over as much space as they possibly can because they're over the cap. A lot of the contracts they handed out last year in the Gerard Mayo year, some of those start to come due next year. It's not enormously over the cap. Like they can handle it, but so they do have now. Maybe what they have is say they'll end the year with 30 in cap space. I don't know what the max is you can roll over, but say with the 53 that they have, to your point, Jay, it says it's 60 million in cap space. If they gave themselves 30 million to play with, they could go get a big fish if they really wanted to, and still roll over 30 million and then clean up next year's cap. But I think that's something that people are forgetting about is that if the Patriots and Vrabel are looking at this in 2-year chunks, next year they've already got cap issues to clean up.
Yeah, guys like Duggar, Barmore have some big numbers coming up. But it's really going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. Week 1 for me I know you and I think, see that game differently from a handicapping standpoint, but it really feels like a one-game season to me. I understand, right? You go back to when the Patriots lost to the Bills 30-0 week 1, and then they win the championship. I get it. But gosh, man, I just think this Raiders team is uniquely positioned I just think the Raiders are going to play a very, very tough football game week 1. I don't think this is going to be a blowout in any way, shape, or form. And I feel as though the Patriots really need to sort of get week 1.
Oh, I agree with you, and they're going to. They're not blowing.
So confident.
I know they're not blowing the first game at home. And let me tell you, from some folks that I've talked to in and around that building, I think people are happy with Drake, but wanting more. And I'm starting to wonder about
wanting more. What? I don't mean to interrupt you, but
more. Take charge of the situation, more like leadership stuff, go celebrate with your team, that kind of thing. You know that I had questioned whether there was like an animal there, right? And physically he can do it all, but is there like, I saw a clip the other day from James Harrison, who said when he went to the Patriots, the first guy who met him at the door was Tom Brady. And he was like, after all the stuff we've been through, he was like, that guy was there to meet me. And then he said, and he goes, 2 weeks later, I went to Brady and said, I really wanted to hate you. He's like, but now I see why everybody loves you. There was a way about Tom, that, but even just more than the first person at the door, I don't know. I think there is a very nice, likable young man. I don't know if at this level there is that guy who wants to rip your throat out in him.
Well, you've always felt that way, and I really do agree with you as of now. He's 10 days shy of his 23rd birthday. There's a lot of different ways to lead. Certainly Jalen Hurts and Tom Brady lead in different ways. But what I'll say about Drake May is I think there's a real humility there, right? I think there's a real innate ability to lead. I think there's a little bit of shyness, just inherent. I don't think he's necessarily the most extroverted guy, even though I really believe he probably has connected with all of these guys. I really do believe that 5 years from now, if you and I were to go back and look at this conversation, we'll be happy to report that evolution, that he has become that guy. I think the age is a real component here. I really do. The fact that he's just about to be 23. And also, too, he has the perfect guy to help him evolve in this department. He's talked about Mike Vrabel helping him from a leadership standpoint. We've seen it on Forged in Foxborough, and I just have great patience in this department.
Yeah, this will be a big year for kind of how they proceed. I'm not saying that the people that I talk to think that, they're kind of one toe in the water and one toe out on May. I think they're in on him, very much so. But I think he's got to show spark by the end of the year. He's got to give them a reason, I think, to believe in him just deeper than he was the number 3 pick and he has a lot of talent.
That's a great point. And I will say, when you hear stories about Tom Brady, even before he became the legend, every practice is like game day. So to your point, right, that type of intensity, and look, reading between the lines, I wonder if maybe there's some information you heard about Vrabel wondering these things, right? I hope not, right? Like, you can be sure I believe in Drake, but also too, you can be sure Vrabel is leveraging all sorts of different conversations in different ways. I don't think Vrabel would hate it if Drake May thought Vrabel was a little bit concerned about his ability to lead. Good.
Yeah. No? Yeah. I think they're trying to coach him the best way they can on it. And I think the other thing too will be the hard coaching. Do you remember with Mac Jones and then with Bill O'Brien and when Billy O finally just lost his bleep on him? And it was like pointing down at the thing, like saying, the damn safety was right there and you still threw it to him. I do wonder how Drake May will respond if and when that moment happens, because all these offensive coordinators get fired up. even Brady and O'Brien got into it, for God's sake. So,
well, see, I think this is exactly what Drake May needs. I think that's what we talked about the first turnover and the preseason. Good. Like, that's what I want, right? And look, I don't think they're hoisting Lombardi this year, right? So for some growing pains, I'm okay with that. But yes, do I think he needs to get ripped on the sideline? Absolutely. He needs all of that to get through that and realize he needs that. But I like his chances to respond to that stuff better than McCorkle Jones or whatever his name is.
Well, I mean, Mac was broken by the time Billy O got him, for God's sakes. But anyway, that's it for this edition of Gas. We got to scoot out of here. PGF tonight.
Yeah,
Matt.
7:00 Eastern time, PGF World YouTube channel. Are you going Mad Dog at noon right now?
Yeah.
So roll over there to catch AG3.
I'll be on Mad Dog. God dang, I need a.
Hope they got a cough button for you. On
they don't, because I don't have one built into my gimmick Schnabitz over here.
Oh,
I gotta change.
Schnabitz. That's a new one for today.
I got to
Schnabitz.
Change the mode.
All right, buddy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Have a great time. The frequent flyer miles are piling up for you, buddy.
Oh, you could be sure. Very glad I had my brother book my flight though from Chicago back home. Works out differently.
Yeah,
end up on a different part of the plane when he pulls.
I know, isn't it great? Were you sitting with him?
No, I fly back to New York. I don't live with my guy anymore, right? So I'm flying down to Florida.
That's right.
He's flying back to New York, Connecticut,
He comes to see you with the sandals and the black socks now.
Oh, he does. He's already coming down. I think he's coming down the day after Dirty Boxing, which is August 29th. I'm like, come on.
There you go. I forgot about Dirty Boxing as well, August 29th. We can touch on that next week for JM Gresh, another edition of Gas. Great job by Cody Merrow.